At the time of this writing, ANA has 36 Boeing 787-8s in their fleet. Some of those are configured for domestic use only. For a country that is less than 4% of the size of the United States, and only the 17th largest in Asia, it is easily one of the most interesting uses of a 787 that we may ever see. Ohio gozaimasu from Terminal 3 at the Tokyo Haneda Airport. It's early, about 6:30 a.m. I believe, and I'm feeling shockingly sprite after arriving in Japan just now after an all-night flight from San Francisco. You've caught me on the bus ride over to Terminal 2, which is necessary to catch ANA flight number 671 down to Hiroshima. Now, normally I wouldn't make a video about such a thing, but it's not every day that I get to fly on a Boeing 787 configured specifically for domestic short-haul flights. There's just no way I'm not going to document this. I think this is the first time I've ever been in Terminal 2 at Haneda. It's hard to tell really, since many Japanese airports tend to look the same. Also, the fact that jet lag is finally kicking in, and everything is starting to get fuzzy, it isn't helping to jog any memories. The food looks really good though, as it does everywhere in Japan, and you guys have no idea how hard it was for me to avoid purchasing a plastic model of a domestic ANA 787. So, here we are. This is gate 65, and I know it may look like that I've arrived super early, but would you believe that boarding is set to begin in less than 20 minutes? I've actually found this to be typical of most domestic Japanese flights. So, yeah, it's a little different than it is back home in the US. T-minus 5 minutes now, and all I have is this horribly outdated boarding pass that I downloaded from the United app well over 18 hours ago. Not only has the flight number changed, my seat assignment has changed as well due to an aircraft swap. Remember how I told you that this was going to be a really fun flight on a domestically configured 787? Well, it's now going to be a really fun flight on an internationally configured 787. Whatever. It's fine. Losing out on the opportunity to experience a domestically configured 787 definitely hurt, but as you can see, all is not lost. This is actually the old international configuration. ANA is updating these 787s with newer interiors, but this one hasn't been touched yet, so it's kind of neat to see what things used to be like. Well, technically it still exists, but you know what I mean. Anyway, this looks pretty good. Legroom is decent, maybe not as good as what you would find in ANA's newest economy seats, but that doesn't mean that you're going to feel cramped. Like I said, this is decent. To be more specific, this would be decent for a long-haul international flight. But for a 1-hour domestic flight, it's not hard to call this anything other than pretty darn good. I think I'm going to survive. Making things even better was the fact that there was maybe a 40% load factor on today's flight. That's not very good for ANA, of course, but having all this extra room to stretch out kind of lessens the pain of losing out on that domestic 787. And I'll tell you what, I have never been on an ANA aircraft that has not been squeaky clean. This one was no exception. Me, on the other hand, well, that's a different story. After flying all night from San Francisco, let's just say that it's very likely that I am the filthiest and most disgusting thing on this entire airplane this morning. Scheduled flying time down to Hiroshima this morning is exactly 1 hour, which will easily make this my shortest Boeing 787 flight ever. Those of you who read my written review for this flight over on SANspotter.com already know that, despite the weather, we managed to do it in 1 hour and 2 minutes. Close enough, I guess. Oh, this is always my favorite part about flying in Japan. It's almost as if these guys actually care about our safety and well-being. Well, maybe not that guy. And with that, we are off. It'll take us a few minutes to reach the threshold of runway 16L, so let me go back to what I was saying about my blog a moment ago. Basically, I post a lot more frequently over there than I do here, so that's where you're going to need to go if you want to check out my most recent reviews. Anyway, looks like kind of a gloomy day for flying, doesn't it? Oh well. Traffic at Haneda seems minimal this morning, which is rare, so there's really not a whole lot to complain about here, other than the crippling jet lag, of course. One of the most common questions I get about any flight that I take is how much I paid for it. Honestly, I have no idea how much this cost. That's because this was part of a $2,000 round-trip economy itinerary from San Diego to Hiroshima and back, so let's just say that I probably didn't get a very good deal here. It happens sometimes. Okay, on with the review. Video entertainment seemed decent, but between you and me, I think it was the cleanliness of this remote that impressed me the most. I probably would have licked it if someone double-dog dared me to. The instructions on how to use the in-flight Wi-Fi via the ANA mobile app seemed clear enough, and I really appreciated the complimentary earbuds, though they tend to be of little use on flights as short as this. And of course there's connectivity. There darn well better be for $2,000. I was also expecting a decent snack, considering how much I paid for this. Unfortunately, as you're about to see, it ended up being what the Japanese refer to as chisai. Status check on the scenery, still can't see nothing. Here inside the cabin, it's snack time, sort of. The only thing available on this flight was a small beverage, which was a letdown considering how hungry I was, but the cup it was served in went a long way towards preventing me from holding any grudges. This is really cool, so cheers to the domestic-ish ANA 787. When it comes right down to it, I'm actually surprised that they didn't serve any snacks at all. Not even a piece of candy or something. I don't know. Maybe it was because I was really hungry, but having something to nibble on would have made this experience a whole lot better, I think. How the heck did this flight go by so fast? It literally flew by, no pun intended, which is something that doesn't normally happen when there's limited onboard service and a lack of scenery to be distracted by. Speaking of the limited onboard service, it's important to note that there was no shortage of please, thank you, and smiles from the cabin crew. They may not have been serving very much, but they went really far out of their way to be happy and polite about it. Flying in Japan is different than it is in the rest of the world. That cup of apple juice you saw me drinking earlier was easily the cheeriest cup of apple juice I've ever had in my entire life. I mean, how is it possible to be bitter when the person serving it to you makes it seem like they've waited their entire life for this exact moment? At least, that's what it seemed like. Inside, she was probably on the brink of going insane, trying to appear to be happy to be serving little cups of apple juice to foreigners. We've all got our struggles, right? Anyway, welcome to Hiroshima. This is a neat little airport. And not only because a portion of the single runway literally hangs off the edge of a mountain. I especially like it because you can go from the back of a Boeing 787 to baggage claim in 6 minutes. Yes, I timed it. Not only that, flying out of here is just as nice because there never seems to be a line to get through security. You could easily show up 30 minutes before your flight and have plenty of time to spare. Oh, and this flight was on July 13th, by the way, which is the peak of summer humidity in Japan. So, for anyone curious, that's why the windows are all fogged up. And that about wraps this up. Although I wasn't able to experience the true domestic ANA Boeing 787 experience, I would imagine that it had to be pretty close to this. For anyone who's just dying to know, I flew back to Haneda 1 week later on an ANA A321neo, and you can read that review over on SANspotter.com. Those of you who are not curious, well, you should be considering that you made it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.